Okay, everyone. Hold on. John is in the waiting room right now. We just finished the countdown. Boy, I had all kinds of technical problems. I was scrambling to the last minute. And while I told John to be sure to have headphones on, my headphones aren't charged, so hopefully that won't cause a problem. Hello, everyone. If you're wondering why I seem to be very pink tinted, I don't normally record here in the daytime. And there's a basement window here that has pink curtains on it, and it's literal rose tinted glasses. And yeah, I look exhausted. I look exhausted. I was up till 4 just doing crap for convention. And yes, got the good shirt on. So, I know John has some other plans later for today, so we won't make this a long intro. Along the bottom there, you can see how to give to my campaign. I am flying out to Reno on Tuesday. Everything is paid for that I wanted to get paid for. The table literature, all covered. If you do any last minute donations, what it will go to is there's always last minute crap. Oh crap, we need something for the table, we need paper, we need this, there's always something. So if you wish to assist, because presently unemployed, though I've sent out a bunch of applications this week. There was no point sending out applications when I was going to be gone for a week. So, really hitting the job trail hard come next week. And hopefully I'll be vindicated next week so that my Wikipedia entry, so the LNC can't continue to ruin my life and make it hard for me to get a job. Yeah, they never thought about that, did they? Hopefully my Wikipedia entry can be updated to be, that the delegates in convention decided, the LNC was full of it and put me back in my position. So, but I sent out a bunch of applications this week. Probably will start getting calls for interviews and stuff that I'll be doing once I get back from Reno. But any little bit you can help does help because, no job. And actually, we had a medical emergency as well, which I was going to cover in another show where I could give a warning that there's some people don't like hearing about stuff like that, and I don't like springing it on people unawares. So let me see if I can bring John on here. We'll make sure everything's good. I got to figure out which side I need to slide over to. Oh, but the purpose of today's show. I don't send guest questions. I like having a free flow discussion. So you never know what's going to come out. That's good and bad. But the purpose of today's discussion is you see these social media posts, or you hear me, and it's very easy to reduce what's going on in Massachusetts down to just shit talking on Facebook with the same couple of people, or, me jibber jabbering. And it's not about that. And I think people have a much better grasp if they get to hear from the people themselves that have been really badly affected by this. And again, I don't know what he's going to say. When I approached the group of the Purged, I basically was like, who would like to come on my show? I would like them to be non-Mises, because the narrative that's getting spun is that, this was a Mises caucus takeover, and we had to do this to get rid of the racists, and all of that crap. At least half of the people purged were not Mises. John is not Mises. And he can explain this for himself, but I think from what I understand, he is actually pretty critical of some people in Mises. So it wasn't even like, they were kissing cousins. I mean, he had friends there and not friends there. Just an average, everyday party member. Not this demon that people are painting this group out to be. Though I do think being called a group of insurgents is pretty sexy. So yeah, I'd own that one, like the insurgency. But let's bring John on and we shall see what he has to say, and hopefully the sound's good. So we might be doing a little troubleshooting because, again, this was me running down here at the last minute. So I'm going to add him to my left. Yay! Okay, now I'm sitting in the right place. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I'm going to turn you up a little bit if I can. And I don't know if maybe you can turn you up a little bit.
If I can, I do not know how.
That's okay. Let me see here. Keep talking.
Okay.
Yeah,
Testing.
I got you on max, so I'd say project.
See if we can bring this a little better.
Yeah, I mean, we can hear you. I will talk a little softer because I tend to get animated, and that will even it out. So, and I know you got something to go to later, so we're not going to make this forever. Hopefully you can see comments.
No, wait. Oh, yes, I can.
Okay, because
All right.
there might be ones that you want to address, or I might draw some to your attention. You never know what's going to come up in comments sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm correct, right? You're not a Mises person. You want to give like a little history of your relationship with Mises at all, or your feelings?
Sure. So involved with the Libertarian, Association of Massachusetts, just because I kind of, did research papers while I was in college, and came to some unique conclusions compared to other people, and I turned in a paper, and the professor said, "You're the first person to come to the conclusion that we need to abolish the Federal Transportation Fund as far as how to fix it." And I ended up getting more political as time went on, and eventually just found out, hey, there are other libertarians in Massachusetts. Went to one of their conventions. It was nominated myself because I thought I can get involved, and served as a communication director. And so this past year, I stepped down. My son was about to be born. He was born maybe a week later. So we have two kids now, and it wasn't the time to keep going on that. I didn't know much about caucuses. I was a delegate for Florida, but I was remote, so I didn't get as involved with the tables of
Yeah.
people, stuff like that. I knew for the most part there were kind of two groups. There were a pragmatic group at the time, which I guess has disbanded since then, and a Mises group. And I think I would have considered myself a little more pragmatic by the definition of what pragmatic means. I don't know if I would have, agreed with everything that group was doing, just because I don't know that group. But I'm not particularly a fan of the Mises Caucus. I don't like the way they do some of their messaging. I have nothing against people who choose to be part of it. I have friends who are part of it. It's just not, ultimately, I think the Libertarian Party is small enough that we don't need smaller groups within it. We already have enough trouble. So I've just never seen much point to caucuses. And of all the caucuses, there's definitely stuff I haven't agreed with the way the Mises Caucus has done things. But it's not something I intend to be a part of. But I think there's groups on either side that and there's a whole bunch of us in the middle who are just kind of caught up in this, and it's frustrating at times. It really is to almost feel like we're playing partisan games inside our third party. It feels almost like I'm a third party in the third party sometimes.
Yeah, you're like the fourth or fifth party in the third party. I know, it's insane. And, like you, though I wasn't expelled, oh my God. When I was purged from the LNC, I wasn't a Mises Caucus member. Now, I was always very, very friendly, but that doesn't mean I agree with all the messaging. I hate the takeover language, and I always have. I've been very vocal about that. But in the evidence against me was me being friendly to Mises people, so that was crime enough. So I totally get where you're coming from, where you're like, damn, like, what? So you were one of the petition signers.
Yep.
And what was your reasons for signing the petition?
So we're going. This all goes back, at least half a year or more now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I had really tried to step back from llama stuff last was it it was March, because the conventions we used to have used to be in March, and then it was this past committee that pushed it to April, gave themselves an extra month, and so I was really stepping back from that, and then I was still involved with Worcester County. When I was on the um, state committee, we were really pushing hard to get local and county affiliates set up. And Worcester County, where I am, along with Charlie and Janelle, um, we got it rolling. It was the first one. It went really well. We were able to get some others set up after that. And that was really the reason why the state party was growing so much. It was because of the affiliates. And, maybe that scared some people. I don't know. But part of the problem with that, a lot of the affiliates had no one in their affiliate representing them on the state committee because of the timing of everything, and I think that is part of what led to all the problems, that people weren't being represented by the state committee. People would go to their meetings, they would ask questions, raise hands, try to get their input put in, and it seemed to really always fall on deaf ears. So I got a little more involved around, I'd say October. It was either October or November that uh, there was some more stuff going forward. There was new requirements that the state committee was putting forward on the county affiliates, like requirements for them to do minutes a certain way, present them a certain way. There was a new code of conduct that was going forward. That was the rough draft of that was bad.
It was rough. I saw it. It was rough.
And so I was actually driving home from a curling game, which is so it had to have been more towards November. Anyway, and I was on the phone with the Worcester meeting, and unfortunately for all of them, they really had to explain all the stuff that was going on again once I got home, because I just didn't have the best service. I feel bad. They're always queuing me in after with stuff, but we had a few people from other county affiliates who would come by and talk about things going on with their affiliates, things that are going on there. And so there was this idea that a few people had. They really wanted to put forward a petition to re-elect the state committee. In part because of the things they were putting forward, the lack of representation. And from my perspective, I thought a lot of the people would be re-elected. There were a lot of people I had a lot of respect for, that I've worked with, that, there were a handful of people, a couple in particular, that were either new to it or were actually appointed to it after the fact, who weren't elected, who I saw, using behavior towards members in the Slack channel or on Facebook, that I really thought they weren't fit for a leadership position. I thought, this is, we're just over halfway through their term. Here's an opportunity to, kind of reset a little bit, make sure everyone's represented. As far as the code of conduct goes, my hope was that they would hold that until convention, that they would let membership decide on something that significant. But they decided they were going to go ahead with it. But this group is like, hey, we're thinking about putting this petition forward. Everyone's kind of interested in it. I'm like, I actually got up in front of everyone, so to speak. We're on Zoom, but it's like, give me 1 month. Let me write some amendments for it, see if they'll take those amendments. Hopefully they'll hear us and just save it for convention. And if they don't, and they're really just ignoring us to that extent, I will even sign the petition.
And I think that's something people don't understand, and it really is a Kafka trap, because if any group of members jumps right away to do something without trying to work things out, they're criticized. But if you spend the appropriate time to work things out, then it's like, why'd you wait so long?
Right.
It's not just, I've seen this in almost every situation I've been involved in, that it's like where there's some abuses going on, and it is a terrible Kafka trap. And I know the reason why, it was that pause between the time people first realized there was a problem to actually doing it is because they were trying to work it out with the state committee. Like, people got, it's so easy to look at it from a distance and not remember that you guys are all people in the same state. It's not a big state. You got to work with each other. You're not looking to create mortal enemies. You'd rather work things out. And that, I think, really needs to be understood. And also, what a lot of people, I think, miss, so I repeat it over and over. Your guys' constitution actually provides for special conventions to be called by members. Yep. That's unusual. It's not unheard of, but I would say maybe 10% of affiliates have that. So not only, I would think you'd been able to do it even without that, because I just think recall is an inherent right. But we don't even have to make that argument because it's in your constitution. You're allowed to do it. And you brought up...
It's explicitly provided, and I've always kind of thought of that as... because we've always been such a small state with such a small group, that's almost been the membership's way to act as a JC.
Yeah. And and you brought up a point that I like emphasizing too, because the way the narrative is spun is that you guys were having a special convention to replace the board, as in everyone would be gone. No, it was an opportunity to potentially replace the board. There's a big difference there because everyone could have been reelected. If they were so confident that they were doing a good job and could convince the members of it, they had nothing to fear.
Oh yeah, there was a point when the special convention was approaching, and I remember telling Chris Crawford, I was like, come to the convention. I will nominate you and I will speak on your behalf. I will do everything I can to get you votes because I think you're someone who should still be on this board. I don't know if I would still say that today, but at the time, that was something I was confident in. I directly told her, come to the convention. I will, I will vouch for you. I will nominate you and vote for you.
Yeah, and I think people do not realize this, that, it was just basically holding almost like, this is not technically but I'm going to just use jargon, like in a way, like it was almost like, we're going to vote whether we have confidence in you or no confidence in you type of thing. And it wasn't as if they were getting thrown out. It was just an evaluation vote, kind of, where they all could have been reelected. And to me, there's just something really insidious about leadership that doesn't welcome that opportunity, because it's a privilege. It's an honor and a privilege to be elected to leadership, and you have to be accountable to the membership. And
I'm elected to my town's select board, so it's a board of 3 people. It's the highest, elected position in the town, and it's,
Were you elected when you were thrown out?
No, I wasn't elected at the time.
But isn't that funny? Like, you're just such a bad person. They just had to get rid of you, and now you're elected. That is just even... It gets crazier and crazier to me, because people do, and if I had heard the story without being so involved, people do find it really hard to believe, because it's so nuts that you guys were expelled. Like, that's the worst. If you read Roberts or any of the parliament, that's the most severe discipline that can be placed in a society. And they went from 0 to expel. Like, for really, it was signing a petition. Mm-hmm. That's it. That is your crime. Like, I thought what the LNC did to me was bad, but what happened to you guys is even more egregious, though I think it was enabled by the behavior of the LNC. It was emboldened people who had a little tyrannical streak to begin with. But oh my goodness, that is just so unbelievable that people are like, nah, there's got to be something else. But there was the Mises paranoia in the background. But really,
that had already started.
Yeah, all you guys
of some
actually
mystical takeover at some point, or I don't know. I don't follow the Mises. I don't know. People are like, well, the Mises said this to me. I'm like, that's nice. I don't. They're not me. I'm not them. I don't even follow them. I don't know what you expect. Like, they called this person this. I'm like, who cares?
It's people. People gonna people. Like, that's.
Like, if like the planning board in my town says something stupid, why does that why does that, like, I'm not on that board.
Yeah.
Like, that's
And,
not my opinion.
there's always going to be people you get along with and people you don't get along with. And when the Pragmatist Caucus was around, there were great people there and there were assholes there. I mean, because people gonna people. That's just the way it is. It's insane. And what's funny about that code of conduct is they don't follow it. It's so selective because the crap that's getting said, like out there about you guys,
Oh, yeah.
and other people who might even kind of like support you guys is just unreal. And code of conducts always end up working that way. To be honest with you, they're generally an awful idea. I know there's some states that it's worked in. I said, yeah, hold my beer. It won't work forever because it's just there's different cultures, there's different personas. Like, get over it. Don't let mean words hurt you. If somebody is threatening, something like that, that's different. Learn how to block.
Took it so far, though. The first draft of it had a line in there, and I believe they took this part out, but it was that you had to support anyone endorsed by Llama. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, so if the Libertarian Party went far some direction and nominated Donald Trump, I need to support Donald Trump publicly. I'm like, that's not happening. Like,
Yeah,
even
and you
even if
can't
you
tell
took a
people.
like, what?
Yeah. I
That's
mean, even National doesn't like do that. Like, I mean, we have certain rules on National, like you can't, expect to stay a member if you're going to actually run on another party's ticket, but that's you. Like,
that kinda
not
makes
telling you who
sense.
you can vote for or, who you can support. That's just particularly for your average everyday member. I can see those kinds of requirements on board members because they're the public, but
And honestly, a lot of the phrasing of what I did when I wrote the amendment for the code of conduct, which they, subsequently tossed out without discussion, calling it out of order. It was a whole thing. I wasn't there. Thankfully, Janelle, was able to represent me because my, county affiliate actually had a couple of people to represent, and she put it forward, and it was immediately tossed out without looking at it, without discussion. I still don't have a good reason as to why that was done, and this is before the petition ever even happened. But so a lot of the language I put into it was really making it about the board members being, you know, about this code of conduct being toward the board members who have that authority, who have those communication channels, who have that ability, to manipulate, membership and opinion of the organization. Whereas members, for the most part, if you have bad conduct, you just don't get elected to the state committee. I think
yeah,
that's
there's
punishment
other
enough.
ways to handle expulsion. It cheapens some legitimate cases. Like if somebody, got, convicted in court of, being a child prostitution pimp or something, yeah, expel their ass, But it's almost like these really broad accusations of racism and things like that. To me, it's not only offensive because calling someone a racist who isn't is just one of the worst things you can call a person, but there are actual racists still. And when you're calling everybody one, all of a sudden the real baddies that do exist get to just, they get away because when everything's racism, nothing is. And there is, I'm not dumb, there is actual racism out there, but it ain't what these people are saying. And when they start calling Jewish people anti-Semitic, I'm like, I'm done. Like, no. There's an irony there, but yeah. So,
Yeah.
and the simplified,
some people just throw these terms around with no idea what they mean.
Yeah. So how were you notified you were expelled, and were you told why? And were you given any notice that this was coming?
Not at all. So we were told that they would take up the petition at the, was it January?
Somewhere in
the
mid-January,
meeting. And so they'd already gone, the petition, it has to be put together in 60 days. There has to be a special convention. They'd already burned half of that before they took it up. So, this has to happen in February now at the latest. And so they've burned through that. And I'm not watching it. I can't get into it. No one can get into it. I think even some of the so, committee
I don't
members
think
had trouble
Charlie
getting
could
into
get
it.
in.
Yeah, and then so everyone's kind of chatting in different messenger groups. There's a tiny bit of chatter on the Slack channel, that like the official Slack channel. Not much there. And then I just get informed from Janelle that everyone who signed the petition has been expelled. And so I'm literally in the Slack channel still, and I write, "Is this true? Did we all just get expelled?" And I just never got an answer, and that was just it. Um, I had paid my dues more recently, so I was one of the people who had them refunded. I never asked for them back though, but those were sent back to me. Um, it was weird. Just like this is a joke, right?
Yeah, it's like
Like,
this isn't happening.
and
Like,
some people were like, "Oh, we knew they would do this," and I'm like, I really didn't think they would actually do this. I was very surprised. There were a good number of people that voted for it. That it really shocked me, having worked with them in the past, and I don't understand why they did. Like, I get that. I mean, I have my theories. There are certain people that, there are there's how's it, there's righteous people, there's wicked people, and there's gullible people, right? And some of them, I really think they were just taken for a ride with some bad information. I don't think they were horrible people, but there were some horrible people saying horrible things. I have some opinions on who those people are, but I'm not here to
yeah.
you know get into that. But yeah, it was surprising. I didn't think that was going to happen. I and then these.
When I got told, and I wasn't one of you, I mean, because I was just Brody's parliamentarian. I was helping, making sure the petition was in good form and all of that. And, I was kept informed of all the games that were being played before that, where they were trying to redefine members. Because the
Mhm.
expulsion wasn't the first thing. First,
Yeah,
all of a sudden, they were trying to redefine membership. You can't do that. Like, it's in your constitution, and it's also and bylaws. You got two documents. Whenever I say one, I'm kind of like referring to them both because I can't remember
I know
which
what you
one's
mean.
in which one. And it's also on the website, become a member. And one of the ways is to pay monthly, but they first try to say, no, monthly members aren't members.
Yeah, that threw me for a loop, because that took off in the Slack, and I was like, what? That doesn't that makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, not even when I first joined, right? I signed up for monthly, and then literally, like, I signed up so that I could go to this convention, because I was just trying to figure out what llama even was. And then at that convention, where I just signed up to be a monthly donor, maybe a week, 2 weeks before when I registered, I was elected to the state committee. I'm like, I'm I'm
Go
pretty
to a
sure
meeting,
I'm a
get a
member if
title.
I'm on the state committee. Like, they're like, their dues are paid up. Like, that's you're on the monthly payments, your dues are paid up. That was weird. The other one that was so weird, there was someone in there who used to work for National, and I don't know if this list was appropriate for her to have or not, but she started calling people out and saying, "Well, you're not donating to National, so your opinion doesn't matter."
I
And to the point, and I kid you not, to the point where someone who that was claimed about posted his bank statements on Slack so everyone could see that he was donating to National, which does not matter. That is not part of the bylaws, the Constitution. There's no
right.
requirement to donate to National. I've literally never donated to National, and I was on the state committee. I literally got a pin from them the other day because I'm now a municipal officer. Like, like, I've never given to National. It's always been to the state. I've always been more concerned about advancing liberty near where I am, because that's what we need. We need more people acting locally. I I mean, liberty goes, like, libertarians are more important than the LNC. You know what I mean? Like, the
Oh,
people pushing
yes.
for liberty are more important than an organization at the top. Bring them together. It's helpful to have both. Just like the way llama split. It's helpful to have the group with all the resources, and also helpful to have the hands and feet, but, like, one of them's going to do better than the other.
Now,
And
that's a huge problem, the shaming people who aren't national members. I know the individual of whom you speak, and it's not a recent habit. We would have members write national and get called out saying your opinion doesn't matter because you're not a current dues payer. The thing is, to be a member of National, all you have to do is sign the pledge. They don't like to tell
Yeah.
you that you can be a free member. If you sign the pledge, you're a member. If you're a member of an affiliate, you're a member through being a member of the affiliate, because there's the affiliate relationship. You're a member of the affiliate who has a relationship with National. It's not pay to play to have your opinion matter at National. I used to get so incensed at that because it's poor shaming, because some people just can't, especially right now, they just can't afford it. $25 is a lot of money to some people right now. I get it. It's a lot of money. I've been unemployed for a while, and part of that's, we won't even get there. But, listen, you don't get to shame people for that. Like, that was just so inappropriate. But buck stops with the LNC, not with that staff member. If the LNC allowed them to do it, see, I put the blame on the boss and not on the person. I mean, I'm not saying they're wonderful, because my feelings about that person are pretty well known, but I put the ultimate responsibility on the boss.
Yeah. I mean, from what I understand, that person's no longer with the LNC. Whether they were forced out or chose to go out is, I've heard 6 different stories, but doesn't
it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. I mean, this person is probably the. All right, there are 3 people on this planet that I've been under the authority of, that willingly, by choice. Obviously, there's a lot of politicians I've been under the authority of, not by choice. But there are 3 people on this planet that I've been under the authority of by choice that I will never put myself under the authority of again. 2 of them are pastors, and the other one's this person.
Oh, wow.
So.
Oh, boy. Yeah, it's so, yeah, Brody made a comment, because it's true, when he then, after that, called me to say, we all just got expelled. I was like, wait, I didn't hear that right. What?
Yeah.
I just couldn't. I've, as you know, I don't call myself an expert, but I spend a lot of time studying party history. It's kind of my passion. Mm-hmm. And I obviously don't know everything that's happened over 50 years. But from what I do know, I think this is the worst thing I've seen in a state affiliate. I really do. The most blatant, like, no gray area. Like, none. No gray area here. I mean, Delaware was pretty bad, too. But it affected less people, and it was a squabble between board members. Not that that makes it better, because they then went and redefined membership. But expulsion is so freaking bad. Like, I just can't even imagine. So you guys then, after you found out you're expelled, then you had to go through how you're going to hold the state convention without their cooperation, which is funny, because now they're going, you're not legitimate because we wouldn't give you the things you needed in order to comply. So we broke the Constitution and then blamed it on you. It's like this insane argument that I can't believe. I don't want to get, because a lot of these people were making these arguments. I don't know them. So I don't want to assume bad faith, but I cannot possibly imagine how people are making this argument in good faith. They're either really illogical people or it's bad faith, because it makes absolutely no sense. And that response that, well, whether the expulsions were valid or not doesn't matter. No, that's the only thing that matters. Because if the expulsions were not valid, everything they did that required a vote of the membership after that date is null and void, because you guys were prevented, you were disenfranchised. And under Roberts and general parliamentary law, if the amount of people who were wrongfully disenfranchised was enough to make a difference in the vote, and of course it could have, because the expelled were more people than actually attended their convention. It's clear.
By far, it's and so this whole thing happens. We happen to have a Worcester County meeting not too long after, and we're all sitting there like what the heck? Like, so maybe half the county affiliate was expelled, the other half wasn't, and all of us are in agreement that this is effed. Like, this doesn't make sense. Everyone's on the same side, even though half of them weren't expelled.
Yeah, because it's just it's blatant. Like, the people who don't see this, I know they do, and maybe it's cognitive dissonance. You tend to want to, if you don't like Mises people, you like try to find a way. And even though it's not Mises, that's why, but still, this is something that if it happened in any party but ours, everyone would see it for what it was. But because it's in ours, you tend to make excuses for your own. What's it? Sin on other people looks like it needs judgment, and sin on yourself looks like it needs mercy. Church saying there. But, woo, like, it is so blatant. So as people go into convention, and they're going to be making these decisions on delegates, this is the crux of it. There's all kinds of parliamentary twists and turns, but it all goes back to the expulsions. Because if they were not valid, then their board is not valid, their delegates are not valid. And I feel bad.
And I think that's the argument to make. I mean, literally less than, maybe it was 2 weeks later in Worcester, we went through the list of all the reasons why it was or was not valid. There was someone who voted who was living out of state, who should not have been a member. There was someone who was holding office, and by mass state law should not have been on the board. And just as that changes the numbers, and I believe it was actually a unanimous vote in Worcester County. They were like, we do not recognize that meeting because it was held improperly, and we don't recognize the expulsions. And I think pretty much every county except for one run by someone who was on that side of that board who now, isn't even part of Libertarian Party anymore. I think the vast majority of the counties that had affiliates voted in similar measures. It's all in that timeline document that people have been showing.
And here's the funny thing, not that there's anything funny about expulsions, but there isn't one step of that they did right. Like, it's wrong morally, it's, and all of that. But even if you just get procedurally, there was no notice, there was no due process. And as you said, then you get down to the nitty gritty. Yeah, the vote was invalid because 2 board members weren't qualified to be board members. So you drop the board down to whatever the number was. And it's not the 2/3 that they needed when you calculate it at that time. And of course, that was all in the appeal brief. So there's no matter what way you look at it, crossing your fingers behind your back and squinting with one eye, there's nothing I don't think they could have messed it up more.
And even in the Constitution, it outlined specifically what you had to do to expel members of the state committee.
Yeah.
It wasn't as specific with members, but with the state committee, it gave a process, and that process just was not followed. And so then it comes to the special convention. They're like, well, there are still 2 state committee members. They very definitively have not been expelled. None of that procedure was followed.
Right.
None of the counties recognize it. It's just this rogue board. And and it says in the Constitution with the petition, must be called. It doesn't give an option. So 2 of the state committee members, they called it as they were required to do. It went forward, and that was the end of it.
And here's the thing, though. Even if you didn't have state committee members in your midst, there is a concept that a lot of people aren't aware of, and I would analogize here in parliamentary law called putting the motion from the floor. So, if you're at a convention, say, or any meeting, even a board meeting, and the chair just decides, I'm not going to hear this motion, and it's perfectly in order, after trying multiple times to get the chair to do what they're supposed to, you're allowed to assume functionally the role of chair for that motion and just turn your back on the chair and say, the question before the body is X, and take a vote. You're allowed to do that. So even if you didn't have those 2 state committee members, I think you guys could have called the convention yourself anyway. So again, it's no matter what way you look at it, none of it was valid. And the really funny thing is, all of them are still considered members. The insurgents still consider them members, but not. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, and that is kind of a crazy part about it, is everyone everyone is still considered a member by the new board. I guess, but again, it was like telling everyone, like, come to this meeting. I wrote out this whole stupid lengthy letter that apparently no one read, where I told them, like, if you're worried about a Mises Caucus takeover, the way you stop that is by coming to the special convention. The only way someone takes over is if they're the only ones who show up. I wrote that
Yeah.
in this letter I shared with everyone, and apparently no one on that side was feeling like reading for, those weeks in advance that I wrote that, and they just didn't come, didn't show up. And
It,
it's
it's an
what,
arrogance that
what are you gonna do?
that
Like,
you, yeah. I've seen it happen all over, the country. It can happen anywhere, and to anybody. It could happen to you. It could happen to me. That sometimes people, it's, again, very human to get into a leadership position, and you just get this kind of arrogance and really tone deafness to what the people you're supposed to be representing need and want. And
yeah,
you start disallowing criticism. You get in your echo chamber. I mean, that's where the LNC is now. But we had that problem here in Colorado a few years ago on our board, which is why we have that spicy group called Colorado Libertarians Uncensored, because we were getting censored anytime we criticized the board. We were told we weren't allowed to do that in public. It all has to be in private. We're like, but your shitty actions are in public.
yeah. I think
It
that's
was
part of serving.
oppressive.
If you can't take criticism, don't serve.
Yeah, I mean, there's other
Like,
things you can do.
so like in my town, there was a recall for the select board, maybe 5 years ago, when stuff hit the fan and people went to jail, and there's a good amount of embezzlement and stuff like that. We're still kind of recovering from it, but I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, if I ever you know was put up for a recall and was just like, no, the people wouldn't settle for that. Like, they're not going to let you just say no and keep your position if they want you recalled. I mean, at that point, the state would get involved, which I guess in this situation would be the LNC, but they didn't want to get involved for whatever the reason. I don't understand all of that. I'm not fluent on the LNC
It's
stuff, but
incomprehensible, so don't even try. It's
yeah,
absolutely, and the JC decision that they upheld that ruling of the chair is incomprehensible. How the JC came to two exact opposite rulings within months of each other,
mm,
it's, you can't hold together a party that way. You just can't.
yeah,
And I
and now
understand the people on the losing side of the Delaware decision didn't like it, but sometimes you suck it up, Buttercup. That's the decision that was made. We need stability, and people need to know what their rights are, and have the same exact JC turn around 2 months later and make an opposite decision is unconscionable.
yeah,
And
it,
they're friends of mine. It's not a friend thing. It's like, but no, I get disagreeing. Believe me, I get disagreeing with JC members, but that's the group. This is what you signed up for. And sometimes you got to suck it up and say, well, I lost this one. When's my next opportunity legitimately? And, it's not 2 months to screw over you guys because they didn't like the decision that was made in Delaware. Because,
yeah,
that's what happened. And that's not right. And that's why I like putting people's faces up, because I want people to remember there's real people here. It's not just these names or chess pieces.
yeah,
There's real people involved. And I am so appalled. There's two schools of thought in the party. And there's parliamentarians who disagree with me, and that's fine. I'm pretty blatant about the disagreement here. But there's a school of thought in the party that if our bylaws lead to an absolute unjust result, it doesn't matter. You got to follow them. And to me, that sounds like somebody, with cops saying, it's the law, even if it's like, I got to turn in my Jewish neighbors, it's the law. No, I think you have to consider that no libertarian who passed those and would ever, I guess I'm talking about, so you go, oh yeah, but you guys consented to these bylaws. Well, I don't know. You need informed consent. And if people who passed it didn't realize that the logical conclusion was injustice, it was not informed consent. So you have to interpret the bylaws in a libertarian context where certain things just are not possible interpretations. They're just not, because libertarians would never agree to that. So
it's crazy.
yeah.
The handful of people outside of the Libertarian Party where I've had to, explain this situation to them, because it does come up. It takes time. There's reasons, that it's taking time out of my life, and I'm trying to explain to them the whole situation. They're like, "Well, that doesn't sound very libertarian." I'm like, "Yeah, no kidding. I said the same thing. Like it certainly doesn't help our cause. Like it's
No.
not showing people what freedom should look like. Again, like if there was a recall, right? And now they're pushing this whole thing of, well, proper notice wasn't given. And it's like, if there was a recall, and anytime there's something happening in my town, there's certain places where it has to be posted. If I lock the town hall so no one can post it on the certain bulletin board, like that doesn't just stop it from happening.
No.
It's not the, like, oh no, this door's locked, I guess we just have to let that person stay in power.
And that's what they did. And that's the argument they're making.
Oh, yeah.
It is unreal.
I will bet money anyone who's making the case right now that they weren't notified about the special convention is one of the people who were sent the information and asked to distribute that information. Like,
Yeah.
9 out of 10 of them, I'd say, literally a couple people who've made that argument to me. I'm like, I can show you the email that went to you asking you to distribute this information. In fact, the LNC was copied on it. Like, it's not a big mystery, and no one would send it out. No one would turn over the mailing lists. What are you gonna even? Oh, and this part kills me, right? So there's a variety of different libertarian Facebook groups from Massachusetts, and some of them that they controlled, they would delete the posts about it.
Oh, I know. They actively prevented you. It's.
There's
know.
one group that Charlie and I controlled, and so none of them were able to control it. And every time it was posted in there were certain people who would report it as false information to Facebook. I had to literally ban people from that group so we didn't get zucked.
I didn't even know that part.
Yeah, they would just keep reporting it.
It's such bad faith.
I had to stop them just so that we didn't lose the group.
It's such bad faith. My God.
It was endless. It was crazy.
Oh, well, woo. And I know you've got family stuff, so we're gonna wrap this up in a few minutes, because I think this right here is probably more helpful than all the crap that's just getting back and forth, because it really is quite simple. But the point I wanted to make were all their attacks on you guys about notice. A, I think it's crap, but B, let's say it was all correct. It still doesn't make them legitimate. Because that has nothing to do with them. They might be trying to delegitimize you guys, but I think the one poster who keeps making this, who we know who it is, keeps making that argument, seems to think in his head that delegitimizing you guys automatically legitimizes them. No, it doesn't. It would just mean nobody is legitimate.
That board was replaced in February, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it was. Convention. It absolutely was. And let's say it wasn't. Let's just say, okay, you're right, but they're not. Just for sake of argument, you didn't have a valid convention, so now there's no board. The options are not between Cordio board and Don Graham board. It's between Cordio board and no board. Those are the only options here. The Graham thing is completely impossible, off the table. There's no path that leads to their legitimacy. There just isn't. And people need to get this through their head. They just do. And obviously, I absolutely believe in the legitimacy of the Cordio board. I wouldn't be defending their legitimacy if I didn't believe in it. I have an ethical obligation. I couldn't do that. I could still argue about the expulsions till the cows come home, but I wouldn't go on to argue for the legitimacy of the board if I didn't firmly believe it was correct. So I want people also to get that. So are you going to Reno?
No, no, I'm not going to be able to make it.
Oh,
I'm
that's unfortunate.
got
But,
a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and trying to
I
figure out my
saw the
first town
pictures.
meeting.
What a
So
cutie! Oh my god! Because I got the picture for the thumbnail from your face. If you're wondering,
yeah,
and you notice I like airbrushed your arm off because it was like this. So I just made it so because you're wondering, did she chop my arm off?
I
Oh,
did
what a
ask my wife that. She does Photoshop all the time. She's like, yeah, it just looks like it's behind you though.
yeah,
And I was
yeah,
like, yeah,
yeah. Oh, but what a cutie pie baby! Oh,
yeah.
oh yeah.
Yeah, so
So,
so tonight actually is the I'm taking my daughter to a father-daughter dance, so it'll be her first
aw,
dance. So
oh my god! So you're
yeah.
totally ruining the image of the of the terrible people they expelled.
You want that to
Oh,
ruin their image? Let me tell you how many Democrats came out in force to help me get elected.
oh my
They're
goodness.
telling you
So
we're all Trump Republicans. I'm like, I had far more support from Democrats than Republicans getting elected.
I know it's and then
I
at
mean, don't get me wrong,
their
I had a ton of support from
yeah.
from like the Worcester Libertarians, but
Oh, of course, yeah.
there's really it's a small town. There's maybe two other Libertarians like registered to vote in this town, and they don't. It's like you're not going to win an election with two votes. So, but
Well,
no,
there were
the county was great.
delegates elected at the convention held by the legitimate board, the
Yep.
Cordio people. That they were elected. They represent you. They represent
Yep.
everyone else, and they're going to be fighting for their seats in Reno. And this is a shame. Like this is just an absolute shame. Right now, they are listed by the Credentials Committee report, which I think is the right decision. I believe the Credentials Committee made the right decision. It's being really politicized, though, which again is
Mm.
a shame. And the LNC has its fingers in it, which is more than a shame. I view that as highly unethical. However, that we'll deal with that next weekend. Just wanted to say, though, that ain't right. That ain't
Yeah.
right. People who are National Party members, your LNC's working against you, just so you know. But these people are going to go and they're going to be there. So, any of you out there that are going to be there, when this dispute comes up, don't get lost in the weeds. This is what it's about. And you decide
Yeah.
whether you're comfortable rewarding people who do things like this. And if not, seat the right delegates and bring justice in Reno. Because so far, justice is denied. And sometimes it takes a while, and that's okay. But don't screw these people over again. Just
And I,
don't.
I just want to really give a shout out to all the people who are going for the legitimate board. There are a lot of them I've been able to talk to about my own concerns with the LNC, and we've discussed ways that I feel comfortable that I'm going to be represented by these people. I think a lot of people in Massachusetts a lot of libertarians in Massachusetts, I should say, are going to be much better represented by this group that they elected than the other group that you know elected themselves, so to speak,
Yeah.
and kept the power. I think I really appreciate how much, how open they've all been about different topics, some that really have nothing to do with this, but are still going to be controversial in Reno, to know that there are some who are representing my opinion on it. And I think that's the point of the delegates, is to represent the
Oh, it
members.
is. It is. So I just implore everyone when you start hearing the arguments, it's very simple. And just seat the right people. Just seat, well, they're presumptive delegates right now, but there'll be a challenge. And
Yeah.
don't let completely irrelevant arguments, and I have a big problem with this argument where the former staff member is going around going, well, I got Edward Snowden to speak, so you should seat my delegation. In my opinion, that's a form of bribery. Not everyone agrees with me. I'm not a lawyer, but as a party member, just as a lay person, I was like, ew. Like, that has nothing to do with at Reno, delegations are not supposed to be judged on your view of merit. It's on their legitimacy as sent by their state. At the state level, delegates can be judged by merit. At the conventions where they're elected, everyone has whatever reasons they have for voting for certain people. But at national, the rest of the country has no say in the frickin' merit of whether your delegates are hard workers or get the right speakers or whatever. It's just, are they legitimate or are they not? That's the only question. And to be using an American hero to try to unseat people who are unjustly expelled, I am so offended by this. If people say, how do you have so much energy? Because I hardly ever sleep. And I say I'm fueled by righteous indignation. It's not caffeine. It's righteous indignation.
Yeah, and this is one of those spots where it's bizarre. It's such a bizarre world now, and this is the same person who's threatened members with physical violence, threatened my own campaign at one point, and like,
I
but
know.
hey, I'm
Yeah,
bringing.
but you signed a petition, and petitions
What?
are aggression, don't you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
here's my good friend JJ in chat disagreeing that it's bribery. I think it's a form of bribery, but I know other people don't agree. But I think everyone agrees it's sleazy. So we might as well just get to what we can agree upon is that that was gross, and it's not the way to use a person, and certainly not a person like Edward Snowden. Like,
regardless of whether it's bribery or not, it's an inappropriate way for it to be decided who gets seated.
yes, it is. It's
It should have
completely,
no bearing on that.
yeah.
I mean, the person, even if this person's liked more at a national level, you need to go with the people who were selected by the general membership in Massachusetts.
Yep.
Like, we're not sending people there to be liked by national. We're sending people there to represent us.
And, unfortunately, this convention, I think, is going to have a lot of that where it's, I hope credentialing doesn't take all day. There are some legitimate challenges. Not going to go into it here. It has nothing to do with Massachusetts. There are some states potentially, where there's legitimate issues that aren't personality issues. Like the joke that TikTok, I think it was in the chat we're in, where it's like the cat. It's a short little TikTok. It's like, can't we get rid of Roy? And another voice goes, no, you need cause. And the cat goes, I do have cause because I hate him, And I was just like, that's what we've turned into.
Yeah, it feels that way. Like, it's just cause I signed a petition.
Yep. And
okay.
As I told, Brody, I told all of you guys, just don't do something corrupt. And you got me on your side because I just can't stand by when this is happening. And I've gotten quite a bit of criticism, not all of it in public, even from people who are friends of mine who are like, why are you minding Massachusetts business? And I go, you want to know what? I'm a Christian. And I do believe we are our brother's keeper, in a sense. And that libertarianism can lead to dystopia if we don't have that mindset that you just turn the other way when there's blatant injustice going on. I can't do that. I can't do that. This isn't minding Massachusetts business. This is minding justice's business. If it was just some weird little spat between, I wouldn't, there's things where people come to me complaining, oh, I don't like who was elected and they are less qualified. I'm like, y'all's business. But this isn't. This should be everyone in the party's business. Plus, a lot of people don't realize I was actually hired by Brody. I'm not getting paid, but we have a professional relationship. I'm donating my services.
I mean, anyone who thinks this isn't related to everyone at National, in my mind, this was a way that the delegation was intended to be manipulated.
And
from Massachusetts. And if that happens at a greater scale, even at this little scale, that's manipulating what happens at national.
Yep.
Again, more people were expelled, quote unquote, than were voting at the convention they had to elect delegates.
Yep. Exactly.
It's manipulation.
Paul says, how are they paying him? Oh, I think you're talking about Edward Snowden. Is that what? I don't know what Paul's asking about. Well, I appreciate you coming and telling your story. And I hope you have a good time tonight with the family. And I do hope that, your friends who are in Reno are going to, I can answer Paul's question too, but, how I hope they're going to be able to call you guys from the convention floor to say, at least you got justice there. The right delegates are sat. And the final resolution of this, everyone knows, isn't going to happen until after adjournment, the appeal can be filed again, and probably will be. That'll be Brody and Andrew's decision. But, people wanted to know, how did the people who are paying for Snowden contact him? The former staff member has a lot of contacts. A good fundraiser has a lot of contacts. So it was through contacts developed over the years. There wasn't anything nefarious about the contact. It isn't because allegedly one guy is a Fed. He's not. I know it's a funny joke, but he's not a Fed. It is a funny joke, though. But there's nothing like that going on there. It's sleazy enough without having to come up with these conspiracies. You kind of, I think, diminish like what really happened when we start coming up with this crazy shit. George Phillies gave the Institute the amount of money to pay Edward Snowden, and a staff member at the Institute, who used to be a former national staff member, had contacts. It's no more complicated than that. That's not where the weirdness is. The weirdness is what we all just talked about. Please don't be putting stories on that side. It makes us look like barking moonbats. Honestly, it does. We don't need crazy conspiracy theories. The true story is crazy freaking enough. All right, I'm going to let you go, and then I'll wrap up here. But thank you. You were a fantastic guest. And I'll talk to you after Reno.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Good luck there.
Thank you. Well, that went well. I'm really happy with it. John was a friend of mine on Facebook, but as you guys know, I'm a friend whore. Like, I have 5,000 of my closest friends. So I knew him just from like some chats, got to know him a bit better over this whole Massachusetts thing. But like, until I went to get the picture for the thumbnail, I didn't know what he looked like. Like, we weren't like close friends. Like, so having him on, I really had no idea how it was going to go. I don't like scripting or planning these things. I want genuine people. I think people resonate with genuineness. And I think he did really well. This is just now he's elected. Like, what a nice guy. What a super, super nice guy. Is this the demon that you keep reading about on Facebook, that they just had to get rid of these people? And if you think he was an exception, he's not. He's not. And the Mises people aren't demons either. But I wanted to put up a non-Mises person just to show. If we had more time, maybe before convention, I'd bring on one of the Mises people. Maybe I'd bring on my client Brody or Janelle. It's like, and something I'd wanted to bring up when John was on, but I just forgot, is, you look at this, like he's really astounded that people he never thought would do this are doing this. He wasn't unhappy with the entire former state committee. I get it. And what I'm going to say next, I'm not exaggerating. Whoa, what happened? What happened? My camera stopped. I don't know why. Well, wow. This is very bizarre. Well, I'm just going to wrap this up then. Sorry that you're getting like, oh, it's like I'm an anonymous informant. Look at that, like you see on the news. But I'm going to close with this. How he can't understand how people, or he finds it just so difficult to believe that people, oh, here we go. Will this work? It says click to start. Yeah, I'm back. Okay. How people, JJ's negging me, that you respected are doing like these things. And here's the thing. I firmly believe, and I'm not exaggerating, this is a known phenomena that happens when you get groups, sometimes referred to as mobs, but let's just say groups. There is mass hysteria that can happen, and it can happen to anybody. And I do think what's going on right now that leads people that probably, because I don't know the other side terribly well. I know some of them. I know the former staff member. But it can lead people who are ordinarily decent people to do horrible things because they get caught up in a mass hysteria. Because there's something about groups of people saying the same talking points over and over and working each other up into a lather that just creates this almost hypnotic, like they start to really just believe like there's this, big Nazi conspiracy or whatever it happens to be that is the mob hysteria. Remember way back when there was the satanic panic, where everyone started believing that all these daycares were being run by Satanists that were like doing rituals with their kids. This is like the exact, it's a mass hysteria. Very well documented psychological phenomena that we humans are susceptible to, and all of us are. I like to remind everyone, when we're sitting in judgment of other people, and we are. I'm definitely sitting in judgment of those people that purge these people. But you got to remember, in another time, in another situation, you're capable of that too. I always like to remember that. And it keeps you, from not feeling like you're better than other people. Your actions in this situation might be better. But, as a Christian, believe everybody's, created equal in the image of God. So we try to remember that. As Brody will even tell you, I try to humanize the other side. That's why I was devastated, like when they did the rescissions, which you can't do, and then said they're just going to start re-expelling people. That was hard. That was hard because I do try to put people first. People before politics. Maintain your humanity. Don't turn into a monster. So that's going to be it for today. And this is probably my last live stream until after Reno. I mean, every time I say that, watch, I'm going to have 10 tonight because the LNC is going to do something hideous. It's my last planned one. We shall see. I didn't finish up the history stuff for April that I would maybe like to do, but I don't think I'm going to have time. There might be mini streams from Reno or whatever, but this is going to be like probably the last formal show, like in my studio and stuff, because I am insanely busy. Leaving, we're flying out Tuesday, and I have nearly every second of the days booked. Immediately after the show, I'm going down to the historical storage to pull things out to display. We're shipping that. It's getting sent up with somebody who's driving. Got a lot to do. So I might not talk to you for that'll be the longest time I've taken off ever since I really started dedicating myself to the stream. But I hope to see you in Reno. If you're there, please be sure to grab me. I will be, ahead with its chicken cutoff. But come and grab me anyway and make sure we can chat for a few minutes. All right, everyone. I hope you have an awesome day. And my radio show is later scheduled. So if you're wondering, if this isn't your last show, you got something scheduled for 2. I recorded that at 3 a.m. So for me, chronologically, this is the last one, even though there's another stream scheduled that was recorded at 3 a.m. Last night. And that's it's talking a little bit about LP controversies because I'm going to be reporting to my radio audience what happens at Reno. And then we get into Governor Palace, which is a Colorado thing, and a little bit into why I don't think overturning Roe versus Wade is any kind of victory at all for people who consider themselves pro-life. And I get into that a little bit at the end, which is probably a controversial opinion amongst pro-lifers, but I was saying that before it got overturned, saying I think that's one of the worst things that could happen for the pro-life movement. All right, everyone. I hope you have an awesome day. Bye-bye.
gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians, or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business.